Hello, my name is Ed Ciliberti. I'm a relatively new resident of Hawaii. My wife and I moved here in 2012, although we had lived here earlier, sometime when I was assigned to 25th Infantry Division at Schofield Barracks. It was our first home together, so we spent several years here, and she's always wanted to come back. Originally from New Jersey, so I've traveled pretty far westward over time. One of the things I was curious about when we came here was to better understand the Hawaiian story from its very beginning. And I was aware of the oversights, the highlights, that sort of thing, but I really wanted to learn a little bit more depth about why Hawaii is what it is and how it got to be that way. And the senior visitor program that the university has provided me an opportunity to learn that. And last fall I took Kumu Laimana's class about the Hawaiian experience in the Pacific Ocean. One of his assignments was that we had to prepare an art project. And the way I do art has always been with words. I'm a writer, have been since way back when I was a child. One Sunday afternoon, I was sitting at the beach bar down at the Moana Surf Rider on Waikiki. And I was looking eastward, and what I saw was a line of hotels, and then the leading edge of Diamond Head coming out. And that gave me the vision to speak about what was in my poem. And as I sat there, quaffing my longboard, I typed out a rough draft of the first poem. So I had it. And part of the art project included a picture, and I shot a picture of that scene that I'd seen there, and then put that together with the poem, and that was my art project for the Kumu's class. What I learned in Professor Laimana's class was interesting. What struck me was, from the get-go, I mean thousands of years ago when the first Hawaiians came from Tahiti and the Polynesian islands down south, they were in an isolated situation. And yet, although they didn't have metals, they didn't have metal tools, they didn't have wheels and all that sort of stuff, they made enormous and brilliant use of the resources they did have on the island, enormously competent. They also had a religious and an ethical system that boosted that very purpose. And yet, when they made European contact, starting with Captain Cook in the 1780s, that whole thing just fell apart very quickly. Interestingly, Kamehameha II, after Kamehameha I had been very religious in his observation of the kapu system, Kamehameha II, under the influence of Kamehameha I's wife, abolished the kapu system and struck at a very basic root of the Hawaiian culture. And then in 1848, Kamehameha IV, the Great Mahele, took away the land which had an enormously important role in that whole Hawaiian culture. And it didn't belong to anybody, it belonged to everyone, and it was sort of an elder brother that needed to be respected. By going through the Mahele, all of a sudden you said, well, a younger person can possess an older person. And that just turned that whole Hawaiian ethic and approach to things upside down. And I think things just went further downhill from there. Of course, it's not only the actions of the Hawaiians that did that, but it was also the decimation of the population. The other curious fact is that the Hawaiian leadership, the monarchs, learned very quickly. I mean, they picked up the whole what royals should be doing, how they should do it, and worked at it, and did pretty well at it. But they sort of didn't learn a very important lesson of kingship and royalty. Everybody is not your friend, and those who profess to be your friend are not your friends. There's an old story about a bird and a pile of dung in the middle of winter. And no, the bird is outside and he's cold, and someone picks him out of the cold and puts him in the dung, and then he chirps and is happy, and the fox comes along and takes him out of the dung. The moral is everyone who seems to be your friend may not be, and everyone who seems to be your enemy may indeed be your friend. So it's a tragic story, and my poem kind of reflects that. It starts with the notion of Diamond Head, or Leahi, as I start the poem, being a metaphor for the people themselves. And the picture of Leahi that I saw, constrained on all sides by big buildings, this great natural feature formed by the goddess of Pele, and all of a sudden it's constrained by these buildings. And I compare that to a lion king in a cage, to Samson tied to the pillars, to Prometheus bound on a rock, liver pecked as I call it. And then at the end the question is, will Leahi spurt forth again that fire which will cleanse the land of these younger brothers who have insulted the older brothers? And frankly, I'm not very optimistic. I've been a writer just about all my life. In grammar school, I wrote little things, insignificant things. When I went to college, I struggled with a major. I think I was a chemistry major at first, or an engineering major, and Chemistry 101 floored me in that. Then I went to be a German major, and that didn't work out too well. What I had done while I was in college, though, was to stay with the college newspaper. I was an editor, I wrote a lot, and that kind of got me going in that direction. I graduated with a BA in English, and also a commission as a second lieutenant in the Army. So in the interval between the end of college and the start of my active duty in the Army, I worked for a year on a local newspaper in New Jersey. When I went into the Army, although I was an infantry officer, I got into public affairs in the Army very quickly. I have been a public affairs officer with the Department of Interior for the U.S. government, and I retired from that operation in '94. And writing has always been something I've done. It's been newspaper writing primarily. I'm taking this poetry class this spring term. I've done poetry before, but this is an opportunity to just work more intensively at it, to hone my skills, to learn some more details about it. And I'm ready to probably look at short stories in the next term when I have an opportunity to look at that.